Well, in the last tutorial, we learned about audio envelopes, and the one before that, we learned about video envelopes. And we learned how Vegas looks at different video tracks on top of each other and which take precedence. So if we were going to continue in that vein, we could then add more video to the timeline, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to add a shot of the Capitol here. And you notice I don't see anything because I still have my envelope, my video envelope, to 0. So if I were to raise that back up now, all the way to the top, I could keep adding videos along this top timeline. And what would happen is obviously it would just keep playing the top timeline only. And if that's all you need to do, you could continue in that vein. But you could then add videos underneath the timeline to switch back and forth. Most of the time, you probably are only going to want to layer videos on the top timeline. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to get too complicated laying stuff underneath it. But there will be times, for instance, if I want to add titles to it, I'm going to have to do that. So let's work with adding a simple title. I'm going to right-click and insert a video track. Remember, I can have up to 10 tracks at a time, so I want to be a little judicious in how I use them. But let's say that I want to add a title in the beginning right there. That's very simple. I just simply insert text media. And you see this box come up with sample text. And I'm going to type in something about beach and city. And that's a little too big for me. I want it a little bit smaller. So I go up here to the font size and adjust it to about 60 or so. That looks a little bit better. And I have all sorts of manipulations on the properties of my title. And most of the time I go to the effects and I go down to the shadow and I draw a shadow. And look how nice here it makes it kind of pop out there and look a lot better. You can do all kinds of things here. You can offset your shadows a little bit. You can do a Y offset, which lowers it up and down. All kinds of things there. Have it about there. And then I go to the placement and I left click and just drag. Where do I want this title at? Do I want it toward the top? Do I want it at the bottom? Do I want it to the right bottom? Whatever way you want it, you can drag that and decide where you want to place it. The properties allows you to change the color of your background or the color of your titles. Let's say I want to change the color of my title. I can go like that and adjust it any color that I want, any color imaginable. Once I adjusted the color, I can do the background, but because we want to see the video that's underneath, we're not going to mess with that. And so you see, once you get used to and once you decide that you like the particular title, you just simply get out of that and you notice our title appears here. Now, a question, do I want my title to fade in or do I want just an abrupt title? If I want a fade in title, I simply go up here to the volume control or the fade control, and you see that there's like a little triangle with a curve. If I left click and drag that over like that, it will just be a nice gradual fade in. Let's watch that and see how that occurs. And it fades in very nicely. We can also fade out the same way, just like that. And so now our title will fade out gradually instead of just disappear. Okay, so what we've done, we created a title, we've made a fade in here, and we made a fade out. So we've created our first title. Anytime we want to change our title, we simply right click on it, go up here to edit, generated media, just like that. We go right back to our box. We can change it any way we want, add something to it. We can add the font. We can change fonts as well. Let's try something different here. Let's try that particular. Okay, now we have a little more light-hearted type font. just about anything you want to do with those titles can be done. So we made a top track here that's going to be take precedence. It's not going to completely cover anything because a title simply will allow us to see what's underneath. All it will be covered up, of course, is where we have our letters at. We can also do effects as far as transitions of our titles. If we don't want the gradual fade in, we can get rid of that by going up here and left clicking and dragging it to the right. And we can go to our transitions and decide on a transition that we want to use. Let's see if we want the 3D shuffle. How do we do that? We just drag that down to the left-hand bottom corner there. And now let's see what kind of effect we have on our title transition. And we see that the beach and city comes up from the bottom and goes up to the top. We'll slow that down a little bit so we can see what that looks like. And that's just one way that we can do a transition. We can also do a transition out as well, just dragging that to the end of the clip at the bottom. And now let's see what we have there. Now beach and city transitions out. It flips out of the way. So that's the first tutorial about how to do titles in our video elements.